The United States and Israel just bombed Iran. And the global economy's most valuable choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, is now sitting in the middle of a war zone. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through that strait every single day. This is 1/5 of all the petroleum the world consumes, and right now, ships are turning around, insurance companies are pulling coverage, and oil markets are about to open on Monday morning with a question no one has had to answer in 40 years. What actually happens when Hormuz goes dark? So let's break down what happened, what it means for energy markets, and why this could become the largest oil disruption in modern history. On Saturday, February 28th, at approximately 9:27 a.m. Tehran time, a joint US-Israeli operation codenamed Operation Epic Fury launched strikes against at least 8 Iranian provinces. Targets included the Ministry of Intelligence, the Ministry of Defense, the Supreme Leader's compound in Tehran, which took 7 confirmed missile impacts, the Iranian Atomic Energy Agency, and the Parchin military complex. Reports indicate that IRGC commander Mohammad Pakpour and Defense Minister Aziz Nesradeh were likely killed. The Iranian Red Crescent reported at least 201 people killed across 24 provinces. And Iranian state media reported that between 40 and 85 children were killed when a girls' school in Manab was struck. Numbers that are gonna dominate international media coverage for days. Iran's response came within hours. Dozens of ballistic missiles were launched at Israel, triggering air raid sirens across the country and a 48-hour state of emergency. Missiles also targeted NSA Bahrain, that is the headquarters of the US 5th Fleet, with smoke observed over Manama. Al Adid Air Base in Qatar was hit, partially intercepted. Ali Al Salam in Kuwait was struck. Al Dhafra in the UAE was targeted, killing 1 civilian from interceptor debris in Abu Dhabi. Explosions were reported in Riyadh. A prominent hotel in Dubai was hit. Jordan's military shot down 2 incoming ballistic missiles. This was not a symbolic retaliation. Iran fired at targets across 6 countries in a matter of hours. Now here's why the energy picture is so alarming. The Strait of Hormuz is only 21 miles wide, but the actual navigationable shipping lanes compressed down to just 6 nautical miles. 2 lanes, each 2 miles across, separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. 20 million barrels of oil squeeze through that gap every day. On top of that, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas trade, most of it from Qatar's massive Ras Laffan facility, goes through the same water. In dollar terms, roughly $1.2 billion worth of energy passes through Hormuz every 24 hours. And Iran controls nearly all of it geographically. 7 of the 8 major islands in the strait belong to Iran. Its naval base at Bandar Abbas sits directly on the waterway. The outbound lane, the one carrying loaded tankers, passes within 20 to 30 miles of Iranian territory. That puts every ship in range of even short-range coastal missiles. And just 10 days before the strikes, the IRGC ran a 3-day live-fire exercise in the strait, testing anti-ship cruise missiles and a new naval air defense system. They were rehearsing for exactly this moment. So what is Iran's ability to actually shut this water aid down? It is substantial. The IRGC Navy operates an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 fast attack craft and armed speedboats, some capable of 80 to 110 knots, designed for swarming tactics that can overload ship defenses through sheer volume. On top of that, they field 131 larger patrol and coastal combatants, including 3 new Shehad Soleimani-class corvettes armed with anti-ship cruise missiles. Their missile inventory creates overlapping kill zones across the entire strait. The Noor covers 120 to 170 kilometers. The Kedar reaches 200 to 300 kilometers at sea skimming altitude. The Abu Mahdi cruise missile, it can extend past 1,000 kilometers with AI-assisted navigation. And the one that keeps naval planners up at night, the Kal-Far's anti-ship ballistic missile, travels at Mach 3 to 4, carries a 650 kilogram warhead, and it has an electro-optical thermal seeker at 300 kilometers range. But the weapon that may matter most is the one you do not see. The US Defense Intelligence Agency estimates Iran possesses between 5,000 and 6,000 naval mines.
Everything from World War I era contact mines to Chinese EM-52 rocket-propelled rising mines that launch from the seabed.
Iran could lay up to 100 mines per day using submarines, fast boats, and even disguised commercial vessels.
And here is the thing about mines. You do not need to actually sink a ship.
You just need to announce that you've laid them.
Naval intelligence officer assessed that marine insurers would pull coverage the moment mining is announced. And the second insurance is gone, commercial shipping stops. It does not matter how many mines are actually in the water.
After the 91 Gulf War, mine clearance took over 2 years. In 1988, a single World War I era contact mine nearly sunk the USS Samuel B. Roberts. Mines are cheap, slow to clear, and psychologically devastating to commercial traffic. Iran's submarine fleet adds another layer. 20 to 23 Ghadar-class midget submarines, 29 meters long, crews of 7, derived from North Korean designs, can sit silently on the seabed in the Gulf's shallow, acoustically difficult waters. They are nearly impossible to detect with conventional anti-submarine warfare in that environment. Iran also fields 3 Russian-built Kilo-class submarines and 2 to 3 indigenous Fatah-class boats capable of firing anti-ship missiles underwater. Now let me put the economic stakes in perspective, because every previous oil crisis looks small next to what a full Hormuz closure would mean. The 1973 Arab oil embargo pulled about 4 million barrels a day off the market, roughly 7% of global consumption at the time. Prices quadrupled. US GDP contracted 4.7%, inflation hit 12.3%, the global economy took 18 months to recover, and prices never went back to pre-crisis levels. The 1979 Iranian Revolution knocked 4.8 million barrels offline. Prices more than doubled. It triggered the Volcker interest rate shock and deep recession. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990 removed 4.3 million barrels a day, and prices shot up 170% in 10 weeks. The Strait of Hormuz carries 4 to 5 times the volume involved in any of those events, and bypass capacity is nowhere near enough. Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline to Yanab on the Red Sea has about 3.3 million barrels a day of unused capacity. The UAE's Habshan Fujairah line adds roughly 700,000. Combined, that is about 2.6 million barrels a day of bypass, covering just 13% of Hormuz's flow. And Yanab sits on the Red Sea, which is now also under threat. Because the Houthis announced immediate resumption of Red Sea attacks within hours of the strikes. This is the part of this that should worry energy strategists most. We're looking at potential simultaneous disruption across 2 of the world's 3 most important maritime energy corridors. During their 2023 to 2024 campaign, Houthi forces attacked 178 vessels and cut Bab el-Mandab transit volumes by 70%. They field anti-ship ballistic missiles with 450 km range, cruise missiles reaching 300 km, and drones that can strike targets 2,600 km away. If Houthi attacks combine with Hormuz disruption, approximately 28 million barrels per day of transit, 28% of global consumption, faces simultaneous threat. The standard reassurance in any Middle East energy crisis is OPEC spare capacity, and on paper, it looks like a buffer. The IEA estimates total OPEC spare capacity at 5.3 to 5.8 million barrels a day, with Saudi Arabia accounting for 2.4 to 3.1 million. OPEC Plus scheduled an emergency meeting for Sunday, March 1st, considering output increases of 411,000 to 548,000 barrels a day for April. But independent analysts at Energy Aspects and Rapidon Energy estimate true deployable spare at just 1.5 to 2.5 million barrels a day. And here's the deeper problem. Over 90% of OPEC's spare capacity sits in Gulf states, whose exports must transit through the Strait of Hormuz. If the strait is disrupted, it doesn't matter how much more oil Saudi Arabia can pump, they can't ship it. The US Strategic Petroleum Reserve holds approximately 415 million barrels, about 58% of its full capacity. Maximum drawdown rate is roughly 4.4 million barrels a day, with first deliverables possible within 13 days. The broader IEA emergency system holds over 1.2 billion barrels in government stocks, with a theoretical maximum drawdown of 24 million barrels a day for about 2 months. These reserves buy time, but they do not replace 200 million barrels a day of sustained flow. And then there's the proxy dimension. Within hours of the strikes, Iraq Shia militants launched rockets at US forces near Erbil. Iraq is OPEC's second largest producer, exporting 3.45 million barrels a day, and 97.5% of that goes through the Basra terminals in the southern Persian Gulf. Hezbollah in Lebanon, though severely weakened by Israel's 2024 operations, retains an estimated 40 to 50,000 fighters and roughly 1,000 suicide drones. Israeli offshore gas platforms sit within missile range from southern Lebanon. Reports also indicate that Karg Island, which handles 90% of Iran's crude exports, shut down after an explosion, potentially removing another 1.5 to 1.7 million barrels a day from global supply. Brent crude closed Friday at $72.87. Weekend retail pricing from IG Group quoted WTI as high as $75.33, up 12% from Friday's close. Vandana Hari of Vandana Insights expects a knee-jerk jump to $80 when markets open Monday. JP Morgan predicts $120 to $130 a barrel in a full blockade scenario. As one analyst at BCA Research put it, if the Strait of Hormuz actually does closes, this becomes the largest oil shock of all time. 3 things will determine how severe this gets. First, whether Iran actually deploys its mine stockpile, an action that could take months to reverse even after fighting stops. Second, whether OPEC members can physically get additional crude oil through bypass pipelines while the strait remains contested. And third, whether the proxy escalation, Houthi Red Sea attacks, potential strikes on Saudi processing facilities like Abac, compounds the Hormuz disruption into something truly systemic. There is one structural difference from the 1970s worth noting. The global economy today uses roughly half as much oil per dollar of GDP as it did in 1973. And the United States is now a net energy exporter, producing 13.8 million barrels a day. Those buffers matter, but they cannot offset a 20 million barrel a day hole in global supply. Monday morning is going to give us our first real answer, and I think what we're watching is the energy market starting to price in a question that strategists have been asking for 40 years. What actually happens when the Strait of Hormuz becomes a war zone? We're about to find out. So be sure to hit subscribe button down below. I'll keep you guys updated as this develops. My name's Dan, and I'll see you guys in the next one.